This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather. Hello there. It's Jeff Cutastrophe. You tune in to Sports Catastrophe birthday bullet. And the birthday for today, December the 13th, is a Russian hockey legend. He actually was a head coach of the KHL CSKA Moscow for 3 years and left in 2024. He's known for his playing career, especially with the Detroit Red Wings. He was a center and looked pretty good. In fact, he's one of the first few hockey players to defect from the Soviet Union to the NHL. Of course, we all know about the Iron Curtain. Anyway, he's won 3 Stanley Cups and an MVP award. He was the first European-trained player to win the Hart Trophy, aka MVP, and one of the best playoff performers in history. His name is Sergei Fedorov, who is now 55 years old. Sergei was born in Pskov in the Soviet Union. It's Pskov, if you must know. Anyway, he was in the Soviet Union's top hockey league at age 16, playing for CSKA Moscow, which is a very huge team in Russia, even today. Well, anyway, he had Pavel Bure and Alex Mogilny also playing on the team, so he was in elite company. Mogilny actually decided to defect from the Soviet Union to play hockey in the NHL. The first Soviet superstar. Mogilny would actually follow soon after, and Pavel Bure waited a few years too. The Red Wings would take him in the 4th round of the 89 NHL draft. The question on everyone's lips would be, what if he had declared earlier? Well, as a center, I think he probably would have went to maybe the Leafs number 3 overall or the Jets number 4 overall as a center. I mean, the Leafs took Scott Borden, black, and the Jets took Stu Barnes, although he would be better for Buffalo, if you will. As for the Red Wings, who did they take before Sergei Fedorov? They took Mike Sillinger, 11 from Regina. But Sillinger is known as, I believe, the guy in the NHL who's been traded the most in NHL history. They also took Bob Bugner, 32nd overall, defenseman. Okay, he was all right. And then they took Nick Lidstrom in the 3rd round. Well, come on, Nick Lidstrom. So, yeah. They took Fedorov 74th overall. The second center in the 4th round, Robert Reichel, went to the Flames. I mean, the Jets could have had Sergei Fedorov in the 5th round. They went with Mark Braunscheidel. The Islanders went with Brent Grieve. The Leafs went with Matt Martin. The Rangers went with Jim Cummins. Quebec went with Nick Anderson. Winnipeg went with Alain Roy, goalie. Not Patrick Roy's sibling. Calgary went with Reichel. Vancouver went with Red Hauer. Philly went with Reed Simpson, and Hunter went with Jim McKenzie. Nevertheless, Fedorov was drafted by Detroit, and he actually GM Jim Delvano actually consulted Captain Steve Yzerman about Fedorov, and Yzerman told Jimmy D he's better than me. So anyway, it was a secret message and all of that. Mogilny was the first superstar to defect, and then Fedorov secretly defected by July 1990. And basically, Fedorov defected while the Soviets were playing the Goodwill Games in Portland. And that was a massive defection, if you will. Fedorov was described as 3 great players in one. And Yzerman even said that Fedorov was the best skater he's ever seen. So Fedorov had a decent rookie year in 1991, but was taken over by Ed Belfour. A lot of people argued that Belfour should not have been considered a rookie because he played in the 1990 regular season. But he played 22 games, whereas the rule is 25, so he was safe. Regardless of that, Fedorov a couple years later would be the best player in 94. He won the Hart Trophy for the NHL MVP. He won the Selke Trophy for top defensive forward, and the Lester B. Pearson Award is the MVP selected by the players, not by executives. He would be second in scoring behind Wayne Gretzky with 120 points. And the 94 Red Wings looked good. They looked like they were going to win the Stanley Cup. They were tops in the Western Conference. They had a puny San Jose Sharks team to deal with, But lo and behold, Chris Osgood made a brutal boo-boo in Game 7 against the Sharks, and Jimmy Baker scored the winning goal. Anyway, Fedorov had some great plays and all that. He put up 50 points in the shortened 95 season in 42 games and scored 4 goals in a Detroit 4-4 tie one game. Unfortunately, the Red Wings would not win the Stanley Cup, although they got to the finals this time, unlike it was last year. Fedorov put up 24 points to lead everyone in scoring, even though they got swept by the Devil Dogs. And he even scored the most goals in the Stanley Cup finals of anybody. The Devils were known for their trap game, of course. Fedorov would win the Selke in 96, putting up 107 points as well. He was stellar defensively. He was top 5 in Hart Trophy voting and helped Detroit win the President's Trophy for most points in the regular season. That 96 team was setting records left, right, and center. Most wins in a season, 62, and, well, not points. That still was the Habs since 77. He actually signed for a 4-year deal to become the first non-North American spokesman for Nike. He made his white skates famous and all that. Unfortunately, the Red Wings would disappointingly fall short of the finals yet again, losing the conference finals to the Avalanche in 6 games. Of course, I was a Patrick Roy fan, so I knew I wanted Colorado to win. But of course, Colorado won, and then Lemieux did that thing to Draper, which was stupid. So anyway, he played in the World Cup of Hockey in 96 for Russia, and then later in the season, he was a member of the Wings' first Stanley Cup winning team since 1955, scoring 20 points in 20 games, leading the team in that category with 8 goals. He scored the most points in the Stanley Cup finals and goals within the finals. A lot of people were shocked that he was not Conn Trophy winner. It was McFernan. Meanwhile, Fedorov actually scored 5 goals in a single game, a rare feat. He actually scored his 5th goal in overtime against Washington in December 1986 to do that. It's hard enough to score 5 goals in a single game. But he scored all of Detroit's goals. Mika Zibanejad is the last player to score 5 goals in a game. He scored March 2020 against the Capitals, just before COVID ruined everything. Regardless, in the mid-90s, Fedorov was part of the Russian Five, a collective unit with Igor Larionov, Slava Kozlov, Slava Fetisov, and Vladi Konstantinov, and helped the Wings win in 98. However, Fedorov held out to start the 97-98 season. He was a restricted free agent. He held out terribly, and then Carolina gave him an offer sheet worth $38 million, meaning Detroit had to match that or exceed it, of course, or else Fedorov would be a Carolina Hurricane. The Red Wings decided to match the offer February 1998, giving him $14 million for signing and $2 million for his 21 regular season games. But they did offer a $12 million bonus if Fedorov led the team to the conference finals. So, that was Carolina's offer too. Sorry, that was for Carolina to reach the conference finals. So the clause was criticized for creating an unfair disadvantage for Detroit, but Detroit matched everything. And it worked. $28 million they paid for 43 total games. Nevertheless, Fedorov helped the Red Wings get to the Stanley Cup finals, much less the conference finals, and winning the Stanley Cup over Washington quite easily. Fedorov said that his 1999 base salary of $2 million would be used to create the Sergei Fedorov Federation, a charity to assist Detroit children. So during the 1990s, he had 126 points in the postseason, only behind Mario Lemieux's 136. Mark Messier also had 126. So anyway, he was the best plus-minus guy in the 90s with a plus 221. Plus-minus is when, if you're on the ice when your team scores, that's a plus. If you're on the ice when the team misses, gives up a goal, that's a minus. Regardless, Fedorov was still around in 2002 when he played with a star-studded roster that included Dominik Hasek, Luc Robitaille, and Brett Hall trying to win the Stanley Cup. Fedorov scored the most points in the Stanley Cup finals, again, and won his 3rd Stanley Cup. All that. Fedorov had to help the team in 2003 when Yzerman was injured for most of the season. and scored 83 points in 80 games. He did well, all that. Detroit would fall to Anaheim in the first round of the playoffs, famously losing via sweep in 2003, and started the Ducks' improbable run to the Stanley Cup Finals. What's even worse was that Fedorov was going to be a free agent, and guess where he signed? That's right, the team that screwed over Detroit. It was the Ducks. Anyway, he signed he actually rejected 2 deals that would have given him $10 million a year. And he actually signed with the Ducks for far less, which was kind of strange. Anyway, the fans would boo Fedorov heavily. He did score a goal for the Ducks, but they lost 7-2. He stayed with the Ducks until 2005, putting up his 1,000th point, becoming the first Russian-born player to do so, and fifth from Europe. It was just amazing and all that. And in November 2005, Anaheim unexpectedly traded him to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Tyler Wright and Francois Beaujolin. But Fedorov played his 1,000th NHL game November 30th, 2005, getting his silver stick, if you will. Anyway, Brian Burke, who joined the Ducks as GM, found that Fedorov was less interested in contributing to the Ducks. He was enjoying the nightlife in Los Angeles, where he'd be riding back in limos at 3 or 4 in the morning, even on game days. He knew what to do. Burke kind of knew what he was going to do and all that. He was put on defense on occasion, but didn't do that well. At the 2008 trade deadline, Fedorov was traded to Washington for them to try to get a playoff push. Anyway, Fedorov would sign a 1-year, $4 million deal with Washington, and in his final season in the NHL, he reached a milestone. He passed Alex Mogilny for most goals by a Russian player, who had 473. But his biggest moment of his final season with the Capitals was scoring the game-winning goal late in Game 7 of the first round against the New York Rangers, winning the game 2-1. If it wasn't for him, Rangers probably wouldn't have won that series. Of course, Washington was up against it, down 3-1 in that series and came back. Fedorov, for the 2010 season, actually returned to Russia, signing a 2-year deal with Magdeburg. He said he wanted to fulfill his father's lifelong dream of having his 2 sons play on the same team. So yeah, Fedorov was also there and medalist. He said he would play for CSKA by 2013. He did, but at the Spengler Cup, which is an international competition in Davos, Switzerland. So anyway, Fedorov was huge, especially in the World Juniors in Anchorage, Alaska in 1989. The Bure-Fedorov-Mogilny line made its international debut. And it was huge and all that. It combined for 38 points and helped the Russians beat Canada for gold. He was a pretty good player and all that. Anyway, there were rumors circulating in the 91 Canada Cup that the Russians were not going to send a team because most players declined to play for the team. There was political turmoil at home and missing top stars. And Pavel Bure, alongside Vladimir Konstantinov, was left out the roster because they felt like they were going to defect. Fedorov accepted the role of the Soviet Union to play on that team, even though he defected. But anyway, he tried his best and all that. Russia in the 96 Group World Cup of Hockey, he saw pretty good and all that. Unfortunately, they were losing the semis to the United States. He won silver for Russia in the 98 Winter Olympics, losing to the Czechs. And Russia defeated Belarus for bronze after being taken up by, I think it was Canada. Yeah, it was Canada because the US beat Russia last time, the other time. So Fedorov even played for Russia at the 2010 Winter Olympics at age 40. They lost in the quarterfinals, but he did okay. So anyway, he was inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2015, rightfully so. He was the GM of CSKA Moscow from 2013 to 2017, and then was named head coach in 2021. And in his first 2 seasons, he brought CSKA back-to-back Russian championships. His contract was not renewed following a subpar 24 season in which they lost in the first round, losing the Lokomotiv Yaroslav. Of course, Lokomotiv, that's the team that had that crash in 2011. Anyway, Fedorov actually said that he married Anna Kournikova in 2001, but Kournikova's representatives denied any marriage to Fedorov. There was a divorce and all that. Fedorov is married to Karina, having a daughter, Alexandra. So anyway, he did his job and all that. And of course, his brother, Fedorov. He made 6 All-Star games, 3 KHL All-Star games, the Hart Trophy in '94 for NHL MVP, 2 Selkies in '94 and '96 for defensive forward, and was great in '94. He actually had the record for most regular season overtime goals at 15, but that's been broken. First European trained player to win the Hart Trophy. First Russian player to get 1,000 points. He had the fastest skater award at the All-Star game at one time. Won the hard shot competition in 2002. The only player to win the Selke and Hart in the same year, '94. And the oldest player in NHL history to score a Game 7 winning goal in the playoffs at 39 years, 136 days. Washington, New York, 2009. By comparison, so that's like 39 years, 4 months. So by comparison, I'm 39 years and 8 months old. So it'd be 39 years, 240 for me. Regardless, in his NHL career, he got 1,248 games, 1,173 points, 483 goals. In the playoffs, 176 points in 183 games, almost a point per game. That's pretty good. And he did what he had to do to be a great Russian influence. Anyway, I'm Jeff. I'm going to do